Hello everyone, it's your boy Rainbow and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another podcast episode. I'm your host Rainbow and today we'll be talking about Lalita Tripura Sundari and we're going to talk about what Lila means. But before we begin, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. So what is Lila? What is the meaning of this beautiful word and who is this goddess named Lalita Tripura Sundari? And in this episode we're going to discuss that in much greater detail. But first, let's talk about Lalita Tripura Sundari. She is the key to unlocking what the meaning of Lila means. So, who is Lalita Tripura Sundari? In order for us to understand her, we need to look at the sacred scriptures of the Lalita Sahasranama. Now, for the sake of time in this video, I am not going to recite it and go into every single detail because there are already millions of videos on her 1,000 names. But we will be using the Lalita Sahasranama, which is the sacred scripture of her 1,000 names, in order to understand who Lalita Tripura Sundari is, right? But for the sake of time, we are going to break down her name, Lalita Tripura Sundari, into three parts. What does Lalita mean? Lalita derives from the Sanskrit word lila. Lila means play, right? Or some people call it pastimes, right? But either way, it basically means a play, an act, a performance, right? So in reality, Lalita means the playful one. Now, how does one play if you have nothing to play with, right? You need a playground, you need a toy to play with, you need something to play with, right? That is also why Lalita, another name of this powerful Shakti, and we've discussed this in our Maya episode. Maya herself is a goddess. One of the names of Lalita Tripura Sundari is Mahamaya. Maha meaning great, Maya meaning illusion or magic. What does that tell you? It tells you that she is the great illusion, the great magic. She is the goddess Mahamaya. She is the goddess of illusions and play. Maya is her playground. Maya is the thing that she plays with. She is both the player and the game, right? Maya is her playground for her to play with. So that's why Lalita means the playful one. And through the name Lalita, this allows us to understand that this is just a play of Brahman. And we'll discuss why Lalita Tripura Sundari is Brahman herself, the supreme Shakti and the supreme Brahman. We'll discuss that later as we go along with this video. The next name of Lalita Tripura Sundari is Tripura. What does Tripura mean? And this name itself has the essence of Brahman, and I'll explain in a little bit why. Tripura, right? According to the translation of Google, Tripura means the three cities, but it was also constructed by a divine architect named Mayasur, okay, which represents heaven, earth, and sky. Pay attention to Mayasur. This name has the word Maya in it, meaning illusion. So you could say that this is the three cities of illusion, or created by the divine architect illusion, right? These three cities, which are named Tripura, are then later destroyed by Shiva, according to a myth. That was the translation given to me by Google, but I wanted to go a little bit further than this. Tripura has the word tri, right? Tri, like for us, and it means triangle, has three sides, right? Or the Trinity, which is Holy Spirit, Father, and Son, which are represented by three, right? Tripura means three, but three what, you may ask? Another translation of Lalita Tripura Sundari means the goddess of the three worlds. You could also say that Tripura represents the three worlds, because as I said before, the three cities of Tripura represent heaven, earth, and sky. Now, I said earlier, when discussing the name Lalita, that the name in its essence means the play of Brahman. Why would I call Lalita Tripura Sundari Brahman? Right? So the reason why is because if we go to the Lalita Sahasranama, in this shloka or in this verse right here, you could see the word para Brahman, right? What does para Brahman mean, right? In Sanskrit, para means supreme. Brahman is the supreme reality. So what it is basically saying is that Lalita Tripura Sundari herself is the supreme reality, the para Brahman, para Brahmani, if you were to change it to more feminine, the feminine version. But what exactly is Brahman, and how do we define Brahman in Hinduism? And I believe I've discussed this before. I'm not sure if it was published or not. But essentially in Hinduism, all of the gods are forms of Brahman. And I believe I've talked about this in a previous episode when discussing about the Advaita Vedanta. In Hinduism, every single god that exists in Hinduism, from Kali to Shiva to Lalita Tripura Sundari, Brahma, Vishnu, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Kali, all of them have mantras that start with Om. Om is the supreme reality, that which is Brahman. It is the sound or the vibration of Brahman. And Om represents the past, present, and future. Notice how past, present, and future are three forms of time. So you can also say that Lalita Tripura Sundari is the goddess that controls three states of time. But back to the definition of Brahman. Brahman is essentially Om. Now, what is Om? Om has three states of consciousness, or three syllables. Aum, right? And it is divided into three syllables. A, U, and M, or A, U, M, right? But for the sake of this video and visualization, we will say AUM. This symbol right here is the key to understanding Lalita Tripura Sundari. The A, which is represented in this diagram here, represents the waking state. The U represents the dream state. And the M represents the deep sleep state. These three states of consciousness are governed by none other than Lalita Tripura Sundari, who is the form of Parabrahman, or the supreme reality. There's also two other forms of Om, which is the Turiya, meaning transcendence, and Maya, which is below it. Maya is illusion. The Turiya is the transcendence of Maya. Maya, which is herself, right? So if we look at this diagram here of Om, everything is Lalita Tripura Sundari. Tripura is represented by Om. She is known as Lalita, which is represented by this Maya right here, because she is known as Mahamaya. Shakti is Mahamaya. Shakti is the feminine power of the universe, that which allows us to act, to think, to do things. In Hinduism, Shakti is defined as feminine. And in Turiya, which is this dot right here, is us transcending this veil of illusion and understanding that we are Brahman. Once we understand the concept of Brahman, once we understand that we are one with everything, we transcend this illusion of Maya and no longer reincarnate, which is the concept of moksha, right? But I'm getting way too ahead of myself here, right? So what I'm saying is Tripura, this word, this beautiful name of Lalita, also means Brahman and the three states of consciousness, which we've talked about. She is Om. That is what she's saying. She is Brahman, right? But anyway, another way that we can interpret Tripura is that she is the supreme Shakti, or the power that created the Trimurti, or the Holy Trinity in Hinduism. So for Christians, the Holy Trinity is represented by the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But for Hindus, the Holy Trinity is defined by the Trimurti. Trimurti means the three gods: Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, or Shiva, right? So here, she's saying that she is the Parashakti, the Parambika. What do those words mean? Para, again, like I said, let's take Parashakti. Shakti herself is a feminine power of the universe. It is represented by the goddesses. No matter what goddess you are Shakti. But one of the names in the Lalita Sahasranama is Parashakti. Para, again, is supreme. Shakti is power. What is she saying? She is the supreme goddess, the supreme power, right? And Paramambika, which is, we later discussed it. We will later discuss this, what this means. But Paramambika means the supreme mother. In the Upanishads and the Devi Mahatmyam, as well as the Durga Saptashati, it is said that before creation, the goddess existed. The goddess created everything from her womb, everything manifested, right? And this is backed up by the Upanishads and the Devi Mahatmya. If you and Devi Mahatmya, which is the sacred text of the goddess, right? Anyway, it is said that Shakti, or the Supreme Mother, the Supreme Goddess, created what is known as a Trimurti. She is the mother of the Trimurti, meaning Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. But if we look deeper into what the Trimurti means, Brahma represents the Lord of creation. Vishnu represents the Lord of protection and preservation. Shiva represents the Lord of destruction. She is the supreme power or the supreme mother of these three deities. She's also saying, by calling herself Paramambika or Parashakti, that she is the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. She's saying she controls all of these three states. She creates, she destroys, and she protects. All right, moving on from Tripura, and let's go on to the next name, which is Sundari. What does Sundari mean? So, if you look at the Sanskrit language, Sundar means beautiful. E usually is represented by a goddess or a feminine energy or a feminine goddess. So Mohini, right? That is the goddess. And also one of the names of Lalita Tripura Sundari. Mohini is also a form of Vishnu. And we'll talk about more about that in detail as we go along in this episode. But anyway, Sundar is beautiful. E is the feminine. What does this mean? Sundari is the beautiful goddess or the beautiful one. So there's another verse that is recited before the Lalita Sahasranama.
Sinduraruna vigrahan trinajadam manityamaulisthurate taranagakashekharam smidamukhi maprinapakshoruham Padibhyamalipurnaratnajashakam raktotpalam bibhratim Saumyam ratnaghatastharaktacharanam dhyaret paramambikam.
This verse here says, I meditate on Paramambikam, who is the Supreme Mother, who has the complexion of sindoor, or basically the red powder that married women put on their hairline, like the middle part of their hair. She who possesses the sun, moon, and fire as her eyes, she who wears a crown adorned with rubies and the moon, she who smiles gently, radiating compassion, she who has beautiful breasts, holds a jeweled wine cup and a red lotus in her hands, and appears gentle, seated upon a gem-studded seat with red-colored feet. Right, so it is basically describing her as this beautiful goddess. That is her form as the Supreme Mother. Right? And then there's another verse which also praises this beautiful form of the Supreme Mother, she who has taken this form. So this verse is also recited before reciting the Lalita Sahasranama.
Arunang karunatarangitakshin dhritapashankushpushpabanachapam Animadibhiravritam mayukhairahamityeva vibhavaye bhavani.
The verse means, I meditate and visualize Bhavani. Bhavani, again, is another form or the same, it's like another name of the same Shakti, the same goddess. So Bhavani, Bhairavi, Parvati, Kali, Durga, Lalita are all forms of the Supreme Mother, which are the same, who are known as the consort of Shiva, right? Just for context, I wanted to add that. But anyway, it says, I visualize Bhavani as crimson-hued, with eyes overflowing with compassion, holding a noose, a gold, floral arrows, and a sugarcane bow, surrounded by the radiant glow of the 8 siddhis. Siddhis means spiritual powers. And reciting in the innermost self as pure consciousness, Ahamityeva, she is me. This same concept can be known as Aham Brahmasmi, meaning I am Brahman. This concept of the Upanishads basically means that these forms of Brahman are us. We are Brahman and Brahman is us. We are one and the same. meaning that Lalita Tripura Sundari exists within all of us. It's the same concept with Krishna too in the Bhagavad Gita, where he calls himself the Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, the Supreme Self. He exists in all beings, right? So he is us, we are in him, he is in us. Similarly, Lalita Tripura Sundari, she is in us and we are in her. We are one and the same. She is me, I am her, right? Anyway, that is the concept of the Upanishads. If you guys want to learn more about that, that our soul is no different than the supreme reality, supreme truth, which is Brahman. But anyway, yeah, that is why she is known as Sundari, because she is beautiful. And even that beauty, those verses that talk about the description of her beauty, even basically emphasize that she is the supreme Brahman, the supreme reality, the supreme Shakti, the supreme mother, right? All of these names explain her beauty in such a way that is indescribable because she is beyond the imagination. Yet she has taken the supreme form of Brahman, this what Advaita Vedantans call Saguna Brahman, right? So Brahman, for those of you that don't understand this concept, I've already talked about this so many other times. But Brahman essentially is a form of the supreme truth and the supreme reality, right? That which is formless, it exists in all forms. So there's the formless type of Brahman, which is Nirguna Brahman. Nirguna means no form, right? Formless. So think of like water, right? Think of like an ocean. That is Nirguna Brahman, right? That is all of us, right? But then imagine that same ocean, drops arising from that same ocean. Those drops are Saguna Brahman, meaning a form, right? We are all from the same ocean, but we take different forms, aka we turn into drops to fulfill certain purposes. And similarly, this formless Brahman has taken a form in the form of a goddess to help us understand um, the supreme goddess and the supreme Brahman, right? She has manifested into a form for a purpose, for a reason. And we are going to talk and explore more as to why did Brahman manifest into the form of Lalita Tripura Sundari. And we're going to explore more of who she is and why she manifested into this beautiful supreme form for us to understand. Alright, so the story of Lalita Tripura Sundari can be found in the Brahmanda Purana. Now, for those of you that don't know what Brahmanda means, Brahmanda is the cosmic egg. It is said that at the beginning of the universe, a cosmic egg was formed, and that is the universe. So you could practically say that this Purana is the story of creation or the story of the cosmic egg. But what we're going to focus on is the Uttarakanda, which basically means the last section of the Brahmanda Purana. And this section is called the Lalita Mahatmya. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which tells the story of Lalita Tripura Sundari. So the story of Lalita Tripura Sundari starts with the famous sage Agastya and Vishnu, and I will explain why that matters later. But for those of you that don't know, Sage Agastya is a sage famously known across many Hindu epics such as the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. He is highly respected because he is one of the co-authors of one of the Vedas, which are the foundational scriptures of Hinduism, along with his wife. He wrote one of the Vedas, also known as the Rig Veda. Right, and so the story starts where Sage Agastya is visiting many sacred places across India and doing pilgrimages, and he, quote, saw all creatures enveloped in the darkness of ignorance and devoted to the satisfaction of the urges of hunger and inappropriate desires. He became worried that the people he saw were in a state of ignorance. Instead of going to temples and worshiping gods, that he decided to worship Shiva and the goddess Kamakshi. Kamakshi is another word for the goddess Parvati, who is Lord Shiva's consort. And he worshipped them in the city of Kanchi. And that's where he began his penance. So he took the penance or tapasya in the honor of people who were deluded in ignorance. And so Lord Vishnu witnesses this. and he becomes pleased with sage Agastya's penance, and he manifested into the form of Hayagriva, who is also known to be the horse-headed god of knowledge, and also the god of debate for some people. He then asked sage Agastya for a boon, and sage Agastya takes this opportunity and asks how and by what means can the ignorant and vulgar creatures get released? Meaning, how can the ignorant attain moksha, as he witnessed at the beginning of the chapter? So for those of you that are not familiar with the Hindu philosophy, moksha is the final goal for all souls, meaning the liberation from the cycle of suffering and samsara, also known as reincarnation. Moksha is basically realizing that we are one with Brahman, that we are one with the divine, one with the source, and realizing that liberates you from suffering. Now, after sage Agastya asked this question to Lord Hayagriva, Lord Hayagriva then reveals that this same question was actually asked by Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma long before him. And this is where Lord Vishnu reveals that he is the prime cause of all beings, the original creator and the Lord, the cause of creation, sustenance, and destruction of everything, right? So similar to what Lord Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna, for those of you that don't know, is another form of Vishnu. But anyway, Lord Vishnu also reveals this secret to Sage Agastya. He reveals that it is through renunciation that one can achieve liberation or moksha, but it will be hard to do so for everybody. So he reveals the secret on how ignorant souls or ignorant creatures can achieve salvation, and that is through meditating on the powerful Parashakti. Once someone does that, Lord Shiva becomes the leader of all the siddhis. Siddhis means spiritual powers that are bestowed upon the devotee. He also says, quote, "Nowhere can there be a simultaneous attainment of worldly enjoyment and salvation without the glorification of Goddess Tripura. You shall attain liberation by keeping your mind and vital air fixed in her, by performing worship unto her and directing all desires unto her, and by performing all holy rites and with the soul identified with her." He also reveals that because of Sage Agastya's selflessness, and this boon that he specifically asked Hayagriva to bestow upon him, he reveals that humanity and even celestial gods and sages will obtain spiritual advancement through the divine conversation of Sage Agastya and Hayagriva. The conversation later starts with Sage Agastya asking about the manifestations of the divine goddess, her other forms, and her divine leelas, also known as pastimes. And Sage Hayagriva reveals that the goddess is beginningless. So we are learning about the nature of the Goddess Parashakti, right? Who is she? What are her forms? Who is she really? So Hayagriva reveals that the goddess is beginningless and can only be perceived through meditation, that she is Prakriti, that she is material nature, and the bestower of all siddhis, meaning spiritual powers. He's basically saying that she is the power that allows everything to happen. Without her, this world cannot even manifest, move, or even exist. Hayagriva also reveals that the goddess has manifested 2 times. One as Prakriti, meaning material nature, right? Prakriti, think of all the nature that you see, right? She is Prakriti, right? So she has manifested as Prakriti, but she has also manifested as goddess Mohini, who was the enchantress who enchanted Lord Shiva. This is a very interesting secret, and let me tell you why. Goddess Mohini is actually an avatar of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu, when he is revealing the secret to Sage Agastya and to us, he's also saying, Parashakti is me, Vishnu. Vishnu is me, Parashakti. Vishnu is Parashakti, Parashakti is Vishnu. There is no difference between the two. We are one. Because Mohini was also an avatar of Lord Vishnu. And when revealing the secret, he is also saying that Mohini is a form of Lalita Tripura Sundari. And it is through the union of Mohini and Shiva that Lord Ayyappa is born in order to defeat the Asuras. So for those of you that are not familiar with the story, there's a demon, right, that rises and causes destruction, and this demon is given a boon that only the son of Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva can defeat him. Now, two men cannot create a child according to Hindu stories, right? Lord Vishnu is male, Lord Shiva is male. So this demon thinks that he is undefeatable. So Lord Vishnu takes on a female form named Mohini, and Mohini is known as the enchantress. Her beauty is so enchanting that she fascinates both the demons and the celestial gods, and even Lord Shiva, who is indifferent to these desires, right? And so from their union is born Ayyappa, and Ayyappa defeats the demon that is causing destruction and chaos. We continue on with the conversation, and we now are moving to another new character, which is Lord Indra. Lord Indra is the king of the celestial gods and the ruler of heaven, right? And there's also another character named Sage Durvasa. Sage Durvasa is a very famous and respected sage, known to be extremely angry and cursing everybody, right? And he had once come across a lady who had obtained a special garland from the goddess, and the sage asked for it because he thought it was so beautiful. And so the lady humbly gave it to Sage Durvasa, and in return, Sage Durvasa blessed the lady to have more devotion towards the goddess and to always be favored by her, right? And eventually he stumbles upon Lord Indra because since he was the king of heaven, the sage Durvasa wanted to give him this blessed garland of the goddess. However, Lord Indra, in his arrogance and his ego, placed the garland on his elephant mount. Iravata, I believe is the name. And then the elephant threw the garland and stomped on it. This, of course, enraged Sage Durvasa, and he cursed Lord Indra to lose all of his glory and wealth, since he viewed this as an insult to both him and the divine goddess. And he said that wherever Lord Indra ruled, it would become extremely ugly, right? So Lord Indra, upon receiving this curse from Sage Durvasa, seeks help from his guru Brihaspati, who is also known as the guru of the Devas. The Devas are celestial gods, for those of you that don't know. But anyway, he asks for solution, and this is where Guru Brihaspati reveals the secret of karma and atonement. So he reveals that there's 5 types of actions committed by a king that constitute a sin, which are violence, killing, stealing, drinking, and adultery. The next 2 chapters, which are chapters 7 and 8, are just basically more about the morality of sins and the different consequences for each one. The sins of theft and stealing, the sins of drinking too much liquor, the sins of inappropriate crimes, and he reveals that the solutions to these sins involve different types of rites, different types of rituals, but also meditating upon the Goddess Parashakti and repeating certain mantras and dedicating your food to her can basically liberate you from these sort of sins. And then we go all the way to the beginning, to the churning of the ocean. This is like at the beginning of the universe, right? When Brahman has manifested into different forms and they are just creating the universe. Guru Brihaspati tells Lord Indra the reason why he was cursed by Sage Durvasa and lost all of his glory and wealth. And at the same time, while this is all happening, the gods are becoming weaker. And so, taking advantage of the gods losing the power, the Asuras, meaning the demons, and the Asura king Bali launched an attack on the heavens, on Swargaloka, I believe it's called. And the Devas, without their strength and without Indra, they are easily defeated. So, Bali and the Asuras take control of Indra's kingdom, leaving him and the other gods without their divine abode. So, Indra, who is immediately humbled and desperate to regain his heaven, he approaches Lord Vishnu for help. And so Lord Vishnu tells Indra that the only way to restore his power was to churn the ocean of milk and to obtain the nectar of immortality, also known as Amrit. And the nectar not only would help the gods regain their strength and their power, but also their immortality. And it is through this sequence of events that Lakshmi emerges from the ocean and becomes Lord Vishnu's consort, right? So it is said that on one side of the ocean were the asuras, and on the other side of the ocean were the devas, and there's like a rock in between them. And Vishnu takes the form of the turtle, right? And so there's a snake that is held by both the asuras and the devas, and they're like churning the ocean, similar to how you're churning butter, right? The asuras on one hand and the devas on the other hand. Devas meaning gods, right? And so they're churning the ocean using the snake and the turtle, which is Vishnu's avatar. And they're basically playing tug of war, trying to, basically churn the ocean out for whatever they can find: jewels, treasures, jewelry. In this case, Goddess Lakshmi, but also the nectar of immortality, which is from the ocean of milk. When this all was occurring, the asuras, meaning the demons, were angry that Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, beauty, glory, and fortune, went with Vishnu. So when the Amrit nectar, meaning the nectar of immortality, emerged from the ocean, the asuras stole it as revenge. This is a problem because the gods are already weak and they need that nectar of immortality. So in order to bring back the nectar of immortality, Vishnu turns into the enchanting form of Mohini, the enchantress, right? And so in order to do that, though, in order to create this enchanting form of Mohini, Vishnu glorified Lalita Tripura Sundari, the divine mother, to create her form. And, her form was bedecked with jewels, and, she was like the epitome of Maya illusions, right? And she deluded everyone with her power, enchanting every celestial god and demon. And she convinced the asuras when she obtained the pot of immortality. When I say she, I mean Mohini, right? Who is actually Vishnu, but in a female form. Anyway, she has this pot of the Amrit, or the nectar of immortality, and she convinces the asuras, like, listen, I'm gonna give this nectar of immortality to all of the gods first, right? So that when you guys get the last drops will actually be more powerful. So along with Goddess Lakshmi emerging from the ocean of milk, right, there's another deadly poison, which is called the halhala. And this deadly poison threatened to destroy the universe. It's the Lord Shiva, who is the Lord of Destruction. He intervened and he consumed the poison, and in order to save the world. And before the poison could consume him, Goddess Parvati, who was his consort, right, contained the halhala poison in his throat, so that he would not be dead and he could save the world, right? And this is why Lord Shiva is also called Nilakanta, which means the blue-throated one, because when he drank the poison, his neck turned blue. So Mohini, taking advantage of her enchanting nature and being able to deceive anybody she pleased, she charmed the asuras and enchanted them, and basically offered to distribute the Amrit fairly amongst the asuras and the devas. And so, basically Mohini was like, all right, listen, I'm going to give the Amrit first to the Devas, the celestial gods, and then I'm going to give you guys whatever's left. The reason is, if I give you what is down at the bottom of the pot of Amrit, right, the drops of nectar will actually be more powerful, right? Obviously, she's lying and she's deceiving them, but the Asuras are so captivated by her beauty, by her enchanting form, that they listen to her and they let her do whatever she pleases. So Mohini, she is giving all of the nectar of immortality to the devas. And eventually all of the devas take up all of the nectar of immortality, leaving the asuras with almost nothing. Indra eventually regains his power and his strength, and the celestial gods as well, and they all defeat the demon king Bali and his army and overthrow him, and they regain the throne of heaven, or the Indra's kingdom. After this story was told, right, Sage Agastya is asking Hayagriva, how was Bhandasura born then? right? Because we know of Mohini, which is a form of Lalita Tripura Sundari, but how was Bhandasura, who ends up being her nemesis, how was he born, right? And Hayagriva told Sage Agastya that Bhandasura was born from when Goddess Parvati was Sati. So Sati, for those of you that don't know, was Parvati's past life incarnation, right? Parvati is the reincarnation of Sati. But same person, just different names, all right? So not to get confused. But Sati was Lord Shiva's consort. And at the time, she was the daughter of Prajapati Daksh, who was a son of Brahma. And she sacrificed herself in the fire of her father's yajna, also known as the fire ritual, after Lord Shiva was not invited and was insulted. Um, After Sati's death and, basically her sacrifice, Lord Shiva became enraged and he threatened to destroy the entire universe. And in order to prevent this from happening, Lord Vishnu intervened and he used his Sudarshan chakra and cut Sati's body into many different pieces. And because of this, there are holy places in India that are believed to be Sati's body, which are like powerful points in India. I don't know what they're called. I don't know the actual term for it, but there are places dedicated to the goddess in places where it is believed that her body fell onto earth, right? Anyway, after this is happening, Lord Shiva is devastated. He just lost his consort. He just lost her because she's now dead. Her body is gone. And so he's in complete grief and he becomes engrossed in the self, basically like isolating himself from the world and not wanting to fulfill his duties, not wanting to engage with the world. He was just in complete deep meditation. And during this time that he was meditating, Sati reincarnated as Parvati, who is now the daughter of King Himavan, also known as the daughter of the Himalayas. So Himavan means mountain. So this basically means she is reborn as the daughter of the mountains. This is foreshadowing because Parvati and Shiva end up living in Mount Kailash, which is a mountain, right, in Tibet right now, currently. While this is all happening though, right, the celestial gods were being tormented by a demon named Taraka. I swear these celestial gods can never catch a break. Um, anyway, so they're tormented by this demon named Taraka, who is destined to die by Lord Shiva's son. And so Brahma is, seeing all of this chaos unfold, and he requests the intervention of Lord Vishnu. He's basically asking Vishnu to be able to enjoy creating beings, because at this time, this was like at the beginning of time, at the beginning of the universe, right? So Brahma is creating, but he wants to have the desire to create. It's almost like he wants to be able to enjoy what he's creating, right? And so Lord Vishnu helps out with this. He looks at Mahalakshmi, who is his consort, and from their glance, from their loving glance, Cupid, also known as Kamadeva, is born from their loving glance, from Lord Vishnu and Mahalakshmi. So anyway, Cupid, or Kamadeva, instills desires and enchants the universe and with love and with desire through his floral arrows, right? He's similar to for those of you who are Greek mythology nerds, he's similar to the son of Aphrodite, who is called Eros, right? Just something to consider there. So anyway, Kamadeva, after he is born, Kamadeva is instructed to shoot an arrow of love and of desire at Lord Shiva in order to instill love into him when he sees Parvati, in order to create a son that will destroy the demon Taraka. Because they need the son of Lord Shiva to be born to defeat this demon. However, it all backfires because Lord Shiva awakens his third eye and burns Kamadeva to ashes. And so one of Shiva's ganas, or Shiva's attendants, gathers the ashes of Kamadeva and builds a man out of it. And when Lord Shiva looks at it or glances at it, it springs to life. And the attendant then told the form that is built from the ashes of Kamadeva to recite the mantra to please Lord Shiva. And that form was later given a boon by Lord Shiva after, pleasing him and after intense penance. And Lord Shiva is pleased with this boy's penance that he grants him the wish to rule a kingdom for 60,000 years. Lord Brahma, he is witnessing this and he's feeling all these emotions. He's alarmed, he's fascinated, yes, he's also in distress. And because of these emotions, he calls this boy from the ashes of Kamadeva, Banda. And for those of you that don't know, there is a double meaning to Banda. Banda could mean drums, which is coincidentally Lord Shiva's instrument. It's called the Damaru, but it's one thing. But the other meaning of Banda is hypocrite and cheater. So again, this is foreshadowing that Bhandasura is going to use this power of ruling a kingdom of 60,000 years to his advantage and lead to the destruction of the universe. And so since Bhandasura was born from the fire of anger from Lord Shiva, his nature was that of a Danava, which is a type of Asura or demon, right? And so Bhandasura asked the architect Maya, for those of you that are confused, right, because I've made an episode on this before, Maya could be Mahamaya, meaning the goddess. Maya could also be illusion. But in this case, we're talking about an architect named Maya, an architect that can build buildings and provide illusions, right? Anyway, just wanted to clarify that. So Bhandasura asked the divine architect named Maya to build a city that matched the opulence of the Devas or heaven, right? And he crowned himself king of that city. So he, starts creating his assistants, his 4 wives, and with the help of Guru Shukracharya, who is the guru of the demons, they worship Shiva and they follow the necessary rituals, the necessary Vedas and the scriptures. This was a kingdom of great wealth. They had fire rituals almost every single day. They were knowledgeable in the Vedas and the mantras and the philosophies and performed fire rituals almost every single day, right? And so Bhandasura, of course, as typical villain hero, gains immense pride and ego. And 60,000 years had passed by this point. Because remember, the boon given to Bhandasura was that he would rule a kingdom for 60,000 years under the protection of Lord Shiva. Right? So anyway, while the demons are gaining power, Lord Indra is losing his power. And so Vishnu is witnessing this and creates Maya. Again, the Maya that I'm talking about here is something else. So he creates Maya, who is an beautiful enchantress. Again, it's Mohini, right? So he creates Mohini again, or Mahamaya. And on Vishnu's orders, this beautiful goddess named Maya, or this beautiful enchantress, was told to fascinate and delude all living beings by her own power and roam about as she pleased. And she was told by Lord Vishnu, go hence immediately and enchant Bhandasura, the leader of the Daityas. You will enjoy all worldly pleasures. So following the order of Lord Vishnu, Maya goes to the city of Bhandasura. And as soon as she enters, Bhandasura and his ministers fall in love and are captivated by her beauty and enchanting nature. And as a result, they forsaked the religious rites. They forgot all about Lord Shiva, the rituals, the Vedas, and forgot all about their duties as kings and ministers. And they were trapped by this illusion or delusion of Maya for 10,000 years. And taking advantage of their delusion, Sage Narada, who is a servant of Lord Vishnu and divine messenger, decides to visit Lord Indra. And Narada warned him that Bhandasura was more powerful. And if he were to be freed from Vishnu's Maya at this very same time, then he would burn the 3 worlds. So in order for Lord Indra to gain his power again, Narada told him to worship the goddess Parashakti in order to ensure his welfare and remove the power of Bhandasura. Right? So they are taking advantage of the situation of Bhandasura, being distracted by this beautiful goddess. And under the guidance of Sage Narada, Indra and the Devas began the worship of the goddess Parashakti in the mountains. And they did jap, also known as the name chanting of the goddess, as a penance for 10,000 years. And there's this priest of Bhandasura who is the son of Brigu, who warns Bhandasura that he had been fooled by Vishnu's Maya, and he warned him of Lord Indra's penance that would ensure Lord Indra victory. So while this is going on, the priest of Bhandasura feels something is wrong, right? And so he warns Bhandasura and tries to awaken him from this delusion that's going on. And he warns Bhandasura that he has been fooled by Vishnu's Maya, right? And this priest warns Bhandasura of Lord Indra's penance that has been going on while he was distracted. And he says that if Lord Indra completes this penance, that would ensure Lord Indra victory. So anyway, while Bhandasura is being distracted by Lord Vishnu's Maya, his priest notices something is wrong, and he warns Bhandasura saying, hey, you're being fooled by Vishnu's Maya. And he warned him that while Bhandasura was distracted, Lord Indra was doing penance to Parashakti, which would ensure him victory. So Bhandasura, is being told all of this. He warns his ministers, and his ministers tell Bhandasura that he no longer has the protection of Lord Shiva since more than 60,000 years had passed, and the boon of Lord Shiva is no longer valid. So one of his ministers, or I think a demon, I forgot, suggested to use the Vidya granted by Lord Shiva to Bhandasura to interrupt the penance of the Devas and Lord Indra. So Bhandasura and his demon army are going to attack where Lord Indra and the Devas are doing penance in the mountains. As they were about to attack, though, the mother of the universe, Parashakti, made a huge wall in front of them that could not be crossed or destroyed, and it was impossible to attack or even destroy it. And seeing the form of Parashakti, the Devas, which were so engrossed in their penance for more than 10,000 years, they awakened and they were filled with fear upon seeing the form of the Supreme Mother. And then they came up with a plan after finding out that Bhandasura tried to break in. They said that it would have been impossible to defeat the Asuras or the demons if they went out. So instead, they performed a Mahayajna, which is called a great fire ritual. In some stories, I heard that the celestial gods from multiverses emerged to make a great fire. But either way, as an offering, the devas or the celestial gods sacrificed themselves by throwing themselves into the fire in order to worship the supreme Shakti. And it is through their sacrifice that the great form of the Supreme Mother, Lalita Tripura Sundari, emerged. Right? So they said, we shall become Brahman, or we will be able to enjoy heaven. And so that's where they start sacrificing their flesh and themselves into the fire. So anyway, I want to sort of describe what is being said in this chapter with some of the excerpts. So I'm going to just read some excerpts to give you an idea of what happened. When all of the flesh of the Devas with Indra had been dropped into the holy fire, an excellent huge mass of brilliant light appeared in front of them. From its middle rose up a radiant circular halo of the shape of a wheel. The Devas, including the Devas, saw Mahadevi in its middle. She had the luster of the rising sun. She was the enlivener of the entire universe. She was the embodiment of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. She was the very limit of the essence of beauty. She appeared to be the ocean of the juice of bliss. She resembled the japa China rose flower. She wore robes of the color of flowers of pomegranate. She was adorned with all kinds of ornaments. She was the very abode of the whole sentiment of love. With the waves of gracious mercy wafting along the tips, her glance was as cool as the moonlight. In her hands, the noose, the goad, the sugarcane bow with 5 arrows were shining. Upon seeing the great goddess, all devas, including Indra, became delighted in their minds, and they bowed down again and again on the goddess, the eminent soul of everything. On being glanced at by her, all of them instantly became liberated from all suffering. So, The next chapter is basically them praising this wonderful manifestation of Lalita Tripura Sundari. I'm going to read some excerpts from the chapter. This is not the entire hymn, as it is extremely long, but I do want to sort of talk a little bit about how they praise her, and talk more on her beauty. So the devas, in this chapter, they praise and pray to Goddess Lalita Tripura Sundari. They say, "Be victorious, O Goddess, the mother of the universe. Be victorious, O Goddess, greater than the greatest. Be victorious, O abode of wealth and prosperity. Be victorious, O soul of the art of love. Be victorious, O Goddess, the embodiment of Brahman, the soul of elegance and beauty of Brahman. O Narayani, O Supreme One, be victorious. O Goddess, the bestower of the light on all the worlds. Be victorious, O beloved of Shikanta." This is basically Shiva. "Be victorious, O Mother Sri Lalita. Be victorious, O Goddess, the conqueror of glory, O bestower of abundant riches and prosperity of victory. Obeisance to the cause of that which is born and is yet to be born. Cause of Ishtapurta, holy and charitable rites. Obeisance to that protectress of the three worlds, O Goddess, who art greater than the greatest. O Mother, who has the netherworld as your feet, earth as your belly, heaven is your face, the moon, sun, and fire are your eyes, the winds are your breaths, and the Vedas your words, the clouds are your hair, and the stars your flowers, the trees are the hair on your body, the dawn is your robe, the past, present, and future constitute your physical form. Creation and formation of the worlds is your sport. Shiva, the very embodiment of Chit, who is the supreme consciousness, is your companion. The bliss of the Sat, existent supreme being, is your diet, and your residence is in the hearts of good people. O Mother, how can I describe your excellent prowess and influence? It is without beginning, middle, or end. It is without beginning, middle, or end. It is not constituted of five elements. It cannot be expressed by words nor comprehended by mind. Its magnificence and power cannot be inferred. It is formless. Be gracious unto us, O Goddess of the universe. Be pleased, O Goddess saluted by the universe. Be pleased, O Goddess of learning, of the form of the Vedas. Be pleased, O Maya Mayi, one equipped with the magical power of delusion. O Mantra Vigraha, who are the embodiment of mantras. Be pleased, O Goddess of everything, O omniformed one. I wish someone described me like this. This is really beautiful. Anyway, after the Devas and Lord Indra praised the beauty of Lalita Tripura Sundari and bowed before the Supreme Parashakti, upon seeing Lord Indra, who is the king of heaven, bowed before her, she became pleased and she asked him for whatever he wished for. Indra simply sought refuge in the goddess and begged to save their lives. And Lalita vowed that she herself would defeat Bhandasura. She eagerly granted Indra the three worlds, including the mobile and immobile beings. She said, "Let all the groups of devas be joyous and free from fear. The men who praise me devoutly by means of this hymn shall be blessed with virtue, glory, and fame forever. They will be richly endowed with learning and humility. They will have a long life, free from sickness. Due to my blessing, let them be blessed with sons, friends, and wives." All right, all right, everybody, y'all go read this hymn if y'all want that blessing from the divine goddess. That's something that I want to talk about too, is that every single chapter has a certain blessing. If you recite it on certain days or on certain times, with devotion and with love, or even just listening to it, or even just reading it, it has special powers and special blessings. So if you're listening to the story, that probably means you have her blessing already. Um, anyway, moving on. The divine architect, Vishwakarma, upon receiving the blessings of the divine goddess, built the city Sripura on her orders, and this beautiful city for Lalita Tripura Sundari, named Sripura, was built on Mount Meru. So this symbolizes the bridge between the worlds and the cosmos, earthly and divine nature, right? So there's like that symbolism there. Anyway, the chapter continues to describe how beautiful and how magnificent it is. Anyway, so once the city is built, Lord Brahma, who is the creator and one of the gods of the Trimurti, requested that Lalita Tripura Sundari rule alongside a king and get married. And no one was more eligible to be her groom than Maheshwara, Shaktiman, Parapurusha, was the supreme consciousness. And so metaphorically, he is requesting the divine union of the supreme Shiva and the supreme Shakti, right? The union of yin and yang, the divine feminine, divine masculine, right? And so since Lalita Tripura Sundari was the embodiment of Shakti, Shiva's consort, Shiva had every right to marry her. So when the Trimurti is praising Parashakti's form, Shiva immediately fell in love and he took the form of Kameshwara, an embodiment that was as magnificent as the god of love. And Shiva, he has the form of a garland of skulls and long, wild, matted locks, and he wears a tiger skin. He's an unruly wild form, right? He has ashes all over him, right? All of a sudden, he takes this terrifying form and he turns it into a beautiful form. And he is now the beautiful form of Kameshwara, filled with divine garlands, robes, and a heavenly scent, wearing divine jewelry. And both Sri Lalita and Kameshwara lovingly gazed at each other. And on seeing this enchanting form of his, Brahma requested Goddess Lalita to be able to witness her fight in the battlefield along her husband, Kameshwara, who is the supreme Purusha or consciousness, to protect the worlds. And he requested that she rule the divine city and take the throne as rightful queen. Lalita smiled and she said, "O Devas, I'm always independent. My conduct of life and my sports and pastimes are in accordance with my own wishes and whims. My husband shall be the one whose conduct of life is befitting mine." And so Brahma, who is the grandfather of the universe, he goes on to talk about the types of marriages and how marriage should be. And, well, after the conversation, the divine couple, they exchange garlands. And with the help of Hari, also known as Vishnu, he performs the divine marriage. So after the marriage has completed, all of the gods offer the divine couple some gifts. There's a lot, so I will only highlight the important ones. Brahma gives her a sugarcane bowl of imperishable nature and strength. Hari or Vishnu gives them a flowery weapon. Varuna, the god of water, gave her a noose. Vishvakarma, the divine architect, gave her a goad. Agni, who is the fire god, gave her crown. The moon and the sun gave them 2 large earrings. Indra gave her an everlasting honey vessel, and many gods and goddesses gave her divine weapons, horses, and chariots for the battlefield. Right. So anyway, there's a divine wedding procession, and both Kameshwara and Kamakshi become crowned, and they sit on the throne. And with just her presence, her divine, magnificent presence, and her glance, she bestows the desires of all her devotees, right? So everybody there is in complete bliss and only wanting to serve her and Kameshwara. But anyway, after this moment of bliss and delight, Sage Narada reminded Lalita Tripura Sundari of her duty. He said, "O great goddess, you are the supreme Brahman. You are the highest majestic luster. You constitute the concepts like Satbhava, existence, Asatbhava, non-existence, and many ideas and comprehensions. It is for the prosperity of the universe that you have manifested yourself. All your activity, auspicious deity, is for the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the prosperity of good people. This demon Bhandasura, O goddess, harasses the 3 worlds. He can be subdued by you alone. It is impossible for all the other gods. The gods have stayed here for a long time, engaged in serving you. At your request, they will go to their respective abodes. Whatever had been auspicious and void hitherto, may that be full of richness." So he's basically telling Lalita Tripura Sundari, the gods have served you, and you have now taken your form. Now please fulfill your duty and your purpose. You need to destroy the demon Bhandasura and go on the battlefield. So anyway, he interrupts this beautiful moment of bliss and reminds all of them of their duty, and the celestial gods return to their divine abodes and continue on with their respective duties.